Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today we're going to be grading every single pick from the first round of the 2022 NHL draft. Now, I gotta be honest, this was the craziest first round I have ever seen. I've been watching the draft since 2016 and no other draft comes close to the amount of surprises and falls and drops and overall drama at the top end of the draft as well as the later half of the first round. But when it comes to the top 32 picks, what do I think of every single pick? Which ones are better than others and which were the steals and the fails of the first round of 2022? Watch till the end for all the opinions and all the draft analysis. And make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 50% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you like draft content, this channel is the place to be. Now let's start things off because there is a lot to talk about. Let's start off with the first overall pick in the 2022 NHL draft. Going into it, Shane Wright was the favorite, and as we got closer to the draft, Slafkovsky made more and more of a name for himself. And with this first overall selection, in the end, the Montreal Canadiens select Juraj Slafkovsky. Now, for me personally, I have Slafkovsky third on my draft board. To me, Wright was the best choice for them, but I can see where they're coming from with the Slafkovsky pick. He brings physicality they don't quite have, and he combined that possession game and shot and overall vision of the offensive ice, and there's a lot of potential play there. At the same time, I do think he could use his physical traits a little bit better. I think he could have some troubles being this bona fide elite forward. I'm not sure if Mikko Rantanen is all that great of a comparison because I don't think he's going to be as offensively dominant as Rantanen can be, but at the same time, I see Slafkovsky being a solid top six physical forward that the Montreal Canadiens don't quite have. Wouldn't have been my pick, and personally, I wouldn't have selected him first overall, but again, I can see where the Habs are coming from. I'm starting to see more as well as we get through this draft, and as I'm trying to sink it all in with this pick, I'm starting to see again what the Canadiens are thinking, especially when it comes to the rest of the draft. It's pretty interesting what they did in the first round, but for the Slafkovsky pick, I give the Montreal Canadiens a flat C. Not terrible, but also not my pick. But at number one, Slafkovsky is still going to be a very solid player. Next up at number two, though, again, this is where the draft started to get crazy. The New Jersey Devils selecting Slovak stud Simon Nemec and having Slafkovsky and Nemec, the two big Slovaks, going first and second in the draft. First up, this is amazing for Slovak hockey, and I'm so happy for that community. It was just a ton of young talent coming up in the future. Slafkovsky and Nemec are great examples of what Slovak hockey has done in the past few years. And at number two, I think for the Devils, it's a really interesting addition. This is a player that is one of the best puck movers of the draft, one of the best possession players of the draft. And you combine what they already have going in the forward group and what they already have going on that defense with Luke Hughes. And to me, Nemec is just going to be more of what that Devils team is building. David Jiricek might have been a better fit in terms of what they need, but the Devils are building their possession identity, and Nemec is going to fit in beautifully with that team. So I'm going to give the Nemec pick a solid B-. Nothing amazing, and I still think, in my opinion, I would have gone best player available, but at the same time, the Mets will fit the Devils quite well and fit what they're going for. Next up at number three is the Arizona Coyotes third overall selection in Logan Cooley. Now, for me personally, I had Wright first, Cooley second, and third Slafkovsky in my draft rankings. So to see Cooley go third overall, regardless of context, is still pretty good, I think, for the Coyotes. And he really does bring a lot of what they don't have: extremely high pace, great talent level, and a consistent offensive rate. This is a guy that drives play exceedingly well and will carry lines as a centerman. And to me, alongside a guy like Clayton Keller, to me, Logan Cooley can be a dynamic and offensive force for the Coyotes. I would have taken Wright, but I can see where the Coyotes are coming from with Cooley, and he might have more offensive upside. So I'm going to give this pick a straight B for the Coyotes. Not too bad. As for the next pick, fourth overall, of course, in my opinion, it is one of the steals of the draft. And with the way this draft went, I don't blame even New Jersey, Arizona for not taking Wright, but at the same time, Wright, in my opinion, is still the best player of the draft. And to get the best player of the draft at fourth overall is an absolute steal. For the Seattle Kraken, this is an A+ all day. But to think about that center core of Matty Beniers and Wright in the future, to me, it'll be absolutely perfect for what Wright needs. To me, in a solid system like Seattle that also very much focuses on defense, they can get the most out of that potential two-way game. And I think in Seattle, alongside some of the core that they're building there, he could be very, very special. A+ selection for me with the Kraken. Now moving on to the 5th overall pick and the Philadelphia Flyers. This was another one that was kind of all up in the place. We didn't know what was going to happen, whether it be Gauthier, whether it be Jiricek, and they ended up going for Gauthier finally at the pick at 5th overall. And to me, I'm not the hugest fan of it, but again, I can see where the Flyers are coming from here. Big body, and he uses his physicality extremely well. Solid playmaking to him and a solid shot. There is some upside there, and I think he'll be a really consistent, physical, probably second-line player, but I don't think he's going to be this elite guy and this elite needle mover, but a player that on a solid team you want to have, and he plays winning hockey. So for the Flyers, I'm going to give that pick a C-. It's not amazing. I don't think it's horrible, and I think if they fit the Flyers mold quite well, but definitely not the pick I would have made, and I think it's one of the higher floors and lower ceiling picks inside that top 10. Next, I'm moving to the 6th overall pick and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Pretty perfect for them, honestly, even though Shane Wright would have been preferable. With David Jiricek, he fills a lot of holes in that prospect pool. They're pretty thin on that right defense side, and to me, you add a booming shot, great physical play, and solid defensive results, and Jiricek is a guy that could be a very solid second, third defenseman. Why did I say pair? Third defenseman on an NHL roster. To me, I think he's just going to be the solid, refined player that you don't have to worry about too much. And at number 6, I think it's a perfectly solid pick. I'd give the Jiricek pick a solid B. Good work by Columbus, but it did kind of fall in their lap. But at number 7, we move on to the pick, of course, from the Alex DeBrincat trade, originally for the Sens, the Blackhawks, and their highest value selection from that DeBrincat trade in the 7th overall pick. They end up going for a defenseman from the Seattle Thunderbirds, Kevin Korchinski. Now, I saw Korchinski go in the top 10. Definitely not this high, though, and at number 7, it's one heck of a risk to make. Now, he's one of the best transitional defensemen of this draft and brings a lot of electrifying play and vision across the ice, and this is a guy that, even though defensively is really raw and really unrefined, I could see him becoming this solid middle pairing power play option. It wouldn't have been my pick, and I still think it was a pretty big reach, but I'm going to give the Korchinski draft pick a C overall. C flat, and we'll see how that develops. It could be a pretty big boomer bust pick, though, for the Blackhawks. Next up at number 8, and the Detroit Red Wings. This was one that I was kind of going back and forth on, but we do know that heading into this draft, they loved Marco Kasper, and they eventually took Austrian centerman Kasper with the 8th overall pick. Now, to me, this wasn't really all too unexpected. We thought that this pick could end up happening. There are some players that I definitely prefer that were left available, but at the same time, considering the Red Wings need center prospects and considering Kasper's high motor and high octane play, I think the Red Wings will really like what they get in Kasper, but I do think there is a problem if they're wanting him as this amazing second line center. I think he'll most likely be an okay second line center or amazing third line centerman, but for the Red Wings, in terms of the positional need and what they got, I give the pick a flat C as well. Then going on to the 9th overall pick, and the Buffalo Sabres. This is one that's been all over the place, but the Sabres eventually took Matthew Savoie, and to me, it's a pretty interesting one, considering how much depth they have in the center position, which we'll get into more as we get into more Sabres picks. But at the same time, on paper with Savoie, to me, I think he fits Buffalo pretty amazingly, brings just a great offensive potential to light, and he's a guy that also is a lot more defensively refined than you'd expect, uses his edge work well, uses his vision of the ice exceedingly effectively, and to me with Buffalo, I could really see him being this great second line play pusher and really just a solid player alongside maybe a player like Dylan Cousins on the center position. But at number 9, I'm going to give the Savoie selection a B flat. So, now moving on to the 10th overall pick and the last pick inside the top 10 in Pavel Mintyukov of the Anaheim Ducks. We kind of knew that they were hunting for Korchinski. And I think one of the reasons why the Blackhawks picked Korchinski at number 7 is that they knew that they wouldn't be able to get him at number 13 with the Anaheim Ducks being right in the middle. They end up going for Russian Pavel Mintyukov, and I think he fits pretty well. And to me, he's a better option than Korchinski. He's a lot more sturdy, in my opinion, than Korchinski, and he brings all the same elements. Great transitional defenseman, a guy that has fantastic decision making and offensively makes these subtle plays that just bring offenses to life. But he's a guy that has a really great shot, to one of the more underrated goal scorers defensively of this draft, and to me has a lot of good potential. I give the 10th overall pick, Pavel Mintyukov, in the draftee by the Anaheim Ducks, a solid B as well. Now moving on to the 11th overall pick and the Arizona Coyotes. This was another one that was interesting involving a trade. The Coyotes moving up to the Sharks pick, and the Sharks end up getting 27 and a couple of second round picks as well. For the Coyotes, they end up selecting Conor Geekie, which was interesting to me. We obviously know that they wanted to bring in some size in this draft. Geekie obviously does that. There is some concerns with his pace of play, and there is some concerns over whether that is going to limit his offensive upside, but he still has great vision on the ice. His playmaking is fantastic, and if he's able to get a little bit more speedy with his skating, there is potential there. But I do think in Arizona, it'll be a lot of work before that happens. I'm going to give the actual pick itself 11 a C+. Now moving on to number 12 and the Columbus Blue Jackets. This was another surprise in the first round. Another big one in Denton Mateychuk. Now, to me with the Blue Jackets, they obviously went for Jiricek at 6. I did not expect them to take another defenseman, but they go for Mateychuk. And in terms of just potential, Mateychuk is a really interesting player. Brings some of the most excitement and some of the most raw talent offensively that you can find in this draft, let alone just for defensemen. There is some question marks there. I think he gets away with a lot of stuff that he's not going to get away with just at the pro level in general. And also, I think he needs to add some more explosiveness to that skating, but the mind is there, and it'll be really interesting to see how it develops. Not the pick I would have made, but I'll still give it a C, and that could end up turning into a pretty high one if he pans out completely. Next up at number 13, though, we go on to the Chicago Blackhawks' second pick in the first round, and they end up going number 13 with Frank Nazar. And personally for me, even though I might not have loved the Korchinski pick at number 7, I absolutely love this selection by the Blackhawks, and he seems like a pretty prototypical Blackhawks pick, just a solid pick to make. And at number 13, I give this grade an A. Although it could maybe be an A+ if you really convince me, I still think it's one of the best picks inside the first round. His high-octane offense, his motor, his consistency, and his ability to just play in dirty areas and still get the puck out is such great traits when it comes to Nazar. And to me, there's a lot of offensive potential. There's a lot of ceiling there, and if you're able to unlock it, you just got a dynamite, even strength and power play offensive player. And for the Blackhawks, again, a solid A is where I go with that. Then going on to the 14th overall pick and the Winnipeg Jets. This was another surprise, but the Jets went for centerman Rutger McGroarty. Now, to me, I love Rutger McGroarty. I had him 16th in my board. To me, around this range is where he should go. The biggest issue is skating, and there is a lot of explosiveness that needs to be brought into his stride. But at the same time, almost everything about his game, besides that, I think shows promise. His vision, his collectiveness, and his maturity in decision-making is at such a high level. And he's a guy that can create plays along the board so easily. Out physical players, just be able to do anything he wants at times. If he improves that explosiveness, to me, he could be a top 16 player of this draft. I'm going to give that grade a B-. Solid by the Jets, and a good one at that. Then going on to the 15th overall pick and the Vancouver Canucks. This is the part of the draft where we start to get into some pretty big steal territory. At number 15, the Canucks go for Jonathan Lekkerimaki. Now, I think this is a solid pick, and at the time, I definitely don't blame the Canucks for going for it. Considering me, I would have gone for Ostlund instead, but Lekkerimaki brings some great attributes. One of the best goal scorers of this draft, and his shot placement, his shot timing is at such an amazing level. He's a guy that loves to get into interesting areas, and if he's able to get some more size on him, if he's able to be a little more consistent, to me, this could be one of the better goal scorers of this draft, and a solid third line, second line power play forward. At number 15, I give the Canucks pick of Lekkerimaki a B- as well. Very solid pick. Then going on to the Sabres, again, at the 16th overall selection, they went for Savoie before a 9, and they went for another centerman in Noah Ostlund. Now, you guys know Ostlund was 9th in my board. To me, the most electrifying player of this draft, and to me, even though there is some issues, especially with his bulk and especially with his maturity, I think at the same time, the potential you have in Ostlund is such a high sky level. There's so much to love there in terms of his skating, in terms of his compete at times, and also this is a player that, with his skill, with his combination of all these traits, can put it together defensively at times. And to me, there's a very, although unrefined, very talented player to be unlocked here. At number 16, even though it is another centerman, I do give the Ostlund pick a B+. And combine that with the Savoie one, not a bad couple of picks by the Buffalo Sabres. Now going on to the Nashville Predators at number 17, and one of the best picks of this first round, they end up getting Finnish sniper Joakim Kemell. Now, the thing is for Kemell, I'm lower on him the most. I have him 11th in my draft rankings, but at the same time, I think we can all agree that number 7 is a really low pick for Kemell according to consensus. And even though there is some pace issues for me, even though there is some parts of his decision making that I think will need better refinement before he's a true amazing goal scorer in the NHL level, at the same time, his shot is still at an elite high. And this is a guy that loves to get into dangerous areas, loves to create off the rush, and defensively can hold his own quite well. At number 17, I think it's an amazing pick by the Preds, and I give that pick a solid A. Next, I'm moving to the Dallas Stars, my favorite team, 18th overall. They end up going for the Swiss huge D-man, Liam Bichsel. Now, the Mammoth, in my opinion, is going to do really well with this Dallas Stars team. Fits exactly what they need in terms of their prospect pool. They were extremely thin on defense, and with Bichsel, I think he really rounds it out quite well. At 6'5", he's great. He's a great skater for his size, and this is a guy that makes clean open ice hits, makes great plays physically, and really just grinds you to a pulp defensively. Going to be one of the better defensive and physical players of this draft, in my opinion. And at number 18, that's a solid pick to make. I'd give it a B-. Now going on to number 19 and the Minnesota Wild. They end up going for a Swedish forward here in Liam Öhgren. And I like this pick quite a bit for the Wild. Even though Öhgren is an interesting situation with the Wild, with them having some solid wing prospects already, I do think Öhgren fits the system quite well. One of the most mature and just consistent players already in the draft, has such a pro game about him. He goes about plays and difficult situations in such a solid way and is a great problem solver. To me, when it comes to Öhgren, you have a good flash of skill there, especially when it comes to the shot that he's able to unleash at times. And to me, this is a player that can chip in all areas, be a power play, be a penalty killer as well, and just be a solid middle six guy that you can depend upon. For me, with Öhgren, I give that pick a solid B. Now going on to Ivan Miroschnichenko, 20th overall by the Washington Capitals. Ovechkin's probably happy about that one for sure. To me, with Miroschnichenko, it's going to be really interesting to see how he recovers and how he plays next season, how much ice time he does get. But in terms of talent, I still think there's a top 15 player there. Even though there is some concerns long-term, I still think Miroschnichenko is a player that if he's able to refine his talent, if he's able to get more consistent, get some more meat, especially on his skating, to me, this is a player that could be really solid and a solid contributor on a middle six, maybe even a second line someday. I give the Miroschnichenko pick a solid C. Though, again, this is a pick that could absolutely boom or absolutely bust. Now going on to number 21, and the Pittsburgh Penguins, right after the Capitals, they end up selecting defenseman Owen Pickering. Now, this is the thing. It wouldn't have been my pick because I think there was a couple players better available. But at the same time, for the Penguins, Owen Pickering is a really interesting selection. Big body, 6'4", but plays more like a 5'9" defenseman. Uses his agility, uses his offensive play in such a fascinating way. I don't think there's a lot physically there that's been shown so far. I think he definitely needs to round his body out and be a lot more comfortable in it, especially when it comes to the physical and defensive game. But at the same time, there's a lot to unlock with his skating, with his passing ability, and to me, as an offensive D-man who could bring great physical traits, there's a lot to unlock. I'm going to give the Owen Pickering selection a C+. Now going on to, in my opinion, sadly, one of the worst first-round picks of this draft. Going on to number 22, I have from the Anaheim Ducks end up having Nathan Gauthier. Now, here's the thing. I think Gauthier is going to be an NHL player. He provides that type of game that will get him to the pros and will have some success there. But the problem is, I don't see him being more than just an okay third-line centerman. And considering some of the options they could have gone for, even Jimmy Snuggerud, who in my opinion has a much higher ceiling than Gauthier in a similar kind of play style, to me it's going to be really interesting to see how Gauthier does develop. He's a player that brings great size and uses his physicality amazingly, but again, I'm just not sure if the offense is there. I give, and this might be harsh, but I give the pick for Gauthier a F. We'll see what happens. I think he'll be an NHL player, but what they could have gotten, in my opinion, was much better. Then going on to number 23 and the St. Louis Blues, a pretty typical Blues pick. They go for USA forward Jimmy Snuggerud. And again, if we're talking about high floor, low ceiling guys, to me, I'd much rather have Snuggerud than a player like Nathan Gaucher. With Snuggerud, he is just impeccable defensively. Loves to pick apart passing lanes, and loves to get around forwards and really create chaos in the defensive zone in a good way for his team. Transitionally, there is some things that I think need to be improved. His skating is kind of a weaker point in terms of his agility, but I do like some of the refined parts about his game when it comes to the anticipation, when it comes to the shot. There is something to be had there, and I think Snuggerud could become this really solid checking defensive third line forward. And at number 23, not a bad pick. I give it a straight C. Now going on number 24, and the Minnesota Wild again with a first round pick. Already going for Liam Ogren. They go for another winger in Danily Yurov. Now, this is one of the biggest wild cards in the entire draft. This could either be an amazing one or a horrible one. With Yurov, especially with the Russian players at the high end of this draft class, he's the most likely to stay in Russia for the foreseeable future. I don't think he's going to come to North America before he's at least 22 years old. But the Wild do have experience with some Russian players staying in the KHL for a long time and developing quite well. So they obviously have some trust in that system. We'll see what happens. Didn't really get much of a sample size this last year, but still has a great skating base, has raw potential that does need to be unlocked. I'll give the Yurov pick a C because, again, we have almost no idea how this thing is going to develop and if he's going to develop for the Wild. Next up, going to 25, and the Chicago Blackhawks with another pick inside the first round. Funny, they went into this day with 0 first-round picks and ended it with 3 first-round picks, but they end up capping their day off at number 25 with Sam Renzel. Now, to me, I think this is a lot higher than I'd have Sam Renzel, but I can see where the Blackhawks are coming from here. A lot of potential with that big frame, but he's a guy that's kind of like Owen Pickering, in my opinion, where he doesn't use that physicality nearly enough, especially when defending rushes. That is a huge weakness for him, letting players that are way faster than him just blow him by, and I think that's going to be a real weakness if he's not able to shore it up. But his passing ability, his vision across the ice, his offensive pedigree, this is the guy that could be a solid, potentially 5th, maybe 4th offensive power play player. But if he does improve his defense, there could be some more potential there. I give the Renzel pick a C+. Now going on to number 26 and the Montreal Canadiens, another team capping off their first round action. At number 26, they picked another Slovak and went for Philip Machar. Now, with Machar, I had him ranked 20th, so he goes 6 spots later on that. I think it's a pretty solid pick, and considering the value of the picks that we saw for the Canadiens, I think this was the best value pick the Canadiens got in this first round. When it comes to Machar, he will need to add a lot more meat to his bones and a lot more physical anticipation. He gets knocked off pucks way too easily, for instance. But this is a player that loves to create high danger chances, loves to get deep and gritty, even if he might not be able to at times, and is a guy that just loves to create offense, loves to support his teammates, and loves to keep play going. As a potential offensive player, I think he's probably going to be limited as a third line power play scorer, but still an effective part of a team, and I think worth a 26th overall pick. Next up, for the Habs and that Machar pick, I'm going to give that pick a B-. Now going on to the 27th pick and the San Jose Sharks, they end up going for this was another surprise that we saw in this first round, another big one, but they end up going for Philip Bystedt. Now, here's the thing. I do like Bystedt, but I just have a big problem with how much potential there is there. Big body and uses it greatly, and especially in a kind of two-way sense, he's able to capture so much of the ice and be able to get through passing lanes. And I think as a fourth-line centerman, he's going to be the perfect type of role for that type of guy. My problem is I just don't see the talent and the skill for him to be much more than a fourth-line, maybe third-line centerman, and that's really the biggest problem. How much is he able to push that lack of inherent skill with that work ethic and with that defensive play? We shall see, but I think he will be an NHL player for the Sharks. I'll give that pick a D+. Now going on to the Sabres, another pick for them inside the first round, and another centerman taken here, which again was really confusing to me. We already have so many centermen, or the Sabres already have so many centermen on the roster with Middlestat, Cousins, and Tage Thompson, and they drafted 3 centermen in the first round. I mean, Savoie could be a winger. Of course, when it comes to Ostlund, he could be a winger, but these are natural centermen that are all being drafted by the Sabres. Jiri Kulich at number 28, though, I still think is a good pick on paper, brings fantastic two-way fundamentals, fantastic positioning, and always such a great awareness of the ice, getting around passing lanes and really making the opponents just just cower in fear along the boards. A guy that will bring a lot in that end. And considering his scoring touch and really good way of finishing, you could have a solid scorer, two-way center here that plays in a third line position and thrives quite well. I'll give the Cooley pick a B-. Now going on to number 29, and thankfully for the Anaheim Ducks, they might not have the worst pick in the first, but we'll see what happens. At number 29, the Arizona Coyotes selected Maverick Lambert. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Lambert at 6'7", I can get some of the appeal. He has decent mobility for his size. I just think that his awareness of the ice, his decision making is, let's just be nice, it's rather raw. And I feel like in the QMJHL, those type of players, those type of defensemen get away with a lot, especially Lambert throughout this year. I think was making way too many plays that will get cut off at higher levels, and especially the AHL level, for instance. And I feel like this is a guy that will need to change a lot of his decision making, a lot of his thinking to get to an NHL level where he's consistent. But to me, it's just a lack of potential. I think the best he could be is a 6th defenseman, and at the 29th spot, I think that's rather poor compared to some of the bets you could have made. I give the Maverick Lambert pick a solid F, just like the Gaucher pick. Now going on to number 30, though, and going to a much better selection. Let's go on to the Winnipeg Jets, who saved the draft by selecting Brad Lambert 30th overall. Now, to me, although it's not Tampa Bay, to me, Winnipeg is a fantastic situation for Lambert to be in. And if you don't know already, Lambert was 4th in my rankings, and this pick is an A+ 100%. I mean, I can give it an A++ if I really wanted to, but when it comes to Brad Lambert, the skating is the best in the draft, and his shot and skill combo, or his skill and playmaking combo is at such a high level that, to me, in Winnipeg's system where they prioritize offense, Lambert is going to thrive. And you consider how well he uses his skating to break up passing lanes and pitch in the neutral zone defensively. This is a player that can bring his own type of talent to the defensive side of the game while also bringing fantastic skill, fantastic skating. And to me, with the Jets, I think he'll fit right at home. A+ pick and one of my favorites of the draft. Then going on to number 31, and the Isaac Howard pick by the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is another one that I like quite a bit. Interesting pick for the Lightning. Considering that they usually like to go for more balanced prospects, Isaac Howard is an interesting pick. All offense and almost zero defense, but the offense he does bring is pretty fun to watch. Such a great pace to his game, and the way he works, the way he's able to get out of pressure, the way he's able to get pucks back to his team and get pucks back to himself is at such a fun level to watch. And to me, when it comes to Isaac Howard, the sky is the limit for what his offense can reach, though I do think physically and defensively there are some pretty big shortcomings. But considering he's going to the Tampa Bay Lightning system, I have no doubts whatsoever that he will fit in quite well. And then going on to the final pick, oh, by the way, for the Howard pick, I give that selection a solid B-. Solid B-. Now, next up, going to the last pick in the first round, the Edmonton Oilers made a big deal with the Zach Kassian trade, and they end up moving down 32nd overall, and they end up selecting Reed Schaefer. Now, this was to be expected, whether they picked or they kept the 29th pick, or they end up selecting 32nd. Reed Schaefer was a pretty big favorite for the Oilers, and I can see where the excitement comes from. Was great in the playoffs and great physically throughout the WHL season. He's a guy that I think is just going to be a solid third-line physical forward that has some scoring touch to him. To me, that goal-scoring finishing ability is really the best part of his offensive game, and that might take him a long way to the NHL level, but I still don't see top 6 upside in him, though I do think it's an okay pick to make, considering if you really want that third-line checking physical scoring threat, I think it's okay for the Oilers. I give the pick a C-. Not horrible, but also not the highest upside you could have gone for. But I can see where the Oilers would really love a player like this. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Comment down below, what do you guys agree and disagree with my grades? And what would you grade the entire first round? What would you grade your favorite team selection in the first round? Let me know your thoughts down below. Of course, share this video with your friends. Get it to anybody you guys know that likes hockey online. Click on this card for all my 2022 draft content, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.